Here I am, climbing up, feeling great, getting love. Here I go, risk it all, be worth it now, and that's for sure. Watch me as a Rocketeer.
All right, welcome everyone to episode 11, Fight Talk Down Under. We're back here on Fight News Australia, and we've got a fair bit to cover off this week. It's going to be a bit of a rundown, really. I guess a roundup of this week's events. So we've got a fair few Australian representatives out and about this week. So we've got Tyson Pedro making his long-awaited comeback on the UFC. We've got Arlene Blencowe's got the big assignment over in Bellator up against Cris Cyborg. We've got Rob Wilkinson in PFL, Mini T Williams over in One Championship, and of course we've got Zerafa versus Hardman in boxing. There's plenty to cover off there, so we'll get stuck straight into it. We'll start straight at the top. We've got obviously Tyson Pedro. He's been off for I think 3.5 years now with various knee issues and injury issues. He's fighting in the UFC this weekend. He's got Issac Villanueva, who's is probably the perfect comeback opponent for him, really. Villanueva is probably a guy who's lucky to still be in the UFC. Just looking down his record, he's 1-4 in the UFC. All 4 of those losses are TKOs early in round 1 or round 2, and they include losses to Chase Sherman and Marcin Prachnio, who in my opinion is one of the worst fighters in the UFC. So this guy, it probably seems like a good opponent to really kind of warm back into the UFC ranks. We don't really know what to expect from Tyson Pedro after such a layoff, but what are you expecting from this one?
I'm excited to see Tyson Pedro back, and obviously I got to be part of the first half of his camp because he was obviously down here at Freestyle training with us. So I got to sort of kind of see him come back after this sort of layoff, and see the early part of the camp and where he was at. And then obviously we had like the guys from City Kickboxing here as well, so he was doing a lot of work with Carlos Ulberg, and it was cool to see the initial kind of sessions. Obviously, you're a bit heavier. You've been out for a minute. You're in a fight camp again. It's your first camp in a while. So obviously those first couple of sessions were going to be a grind and be a struggle, and especially how we train at Freestyle. So, I think Pedro was kind of had to find his feet again a little bit, and then after a couple of sessions, obviously you start to see the little glimmers of pre-break, sort of pre-injury Tyson Pedro that you used to see that was fighting in the UFC. And then, then it kind of just started running like clockwork. And obviously he's went up to Queensland to finish off his camp at Combat Training Centre up there. The guy looks like he's in shape. He looks like, the weight's trimmed off fairly easily. And from what I could see, the sessions that I kind of saw and the sparring I saw, he's going to go out there and walk through this guy. I think it's going to be an easy and quick night in the office for Tyson. Obviously, he's going to have a few things in the first minute to kind of figure out. You're going to have that adrenaline rush again from fighting back after a break. You're going to be in front of a crowd, the sort of general sort of stuff like that. But I think, he's going to just slot right back in and get the momentum back and get a win and move forward and start, making up for lost time.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you about that. Do you think ring rust is a real thing? I guess a recent example is Rashad Evans. He made his comeback recently on Eagle FC, and it was his first fight in 4 years. And he said post-fight, I was watching one of his interviews. He said it was a bit of a shock just being back in there. He kind of just felt felt surreal being back in there after 4 years. Obviously he retired, so it was maybe a little bit of a different scenario to Tyson Pedro, but it's a similar period of time. So is ring rust a real thing? And how do you think Tyson Pedro will be feeling when he gets in there?
I mean, obviously having a break, any sort of break, even if it doesn't matter if it's like a month or 6 months or 3 years or whatever, any sort of break is gonna, when you get in there and you're inside the cage, you're actually gonna fight now. You're gonna have it's gonna be normal to have that, like, oh, holy shit, I'm back here type sort of thing. But as far as ring rust, I don't really, I don't really think it's a thing. I think it's a thing that people like I don't want to say an out, not an out. That's probably the wrong way to put it, but I think it's a narrative that people will grasp onto because then you kind of have a safety net. Like I always equate it to sort of what they used to say about what John Jones used to do. Like he used to party before his fights and that, and then he'd had a sort of built-in safety net for like a backup to be like, oh well, if he did lose, he could be like, well, I was partying the whole time. I think the ring rust thing is a bit like that. It's like if things don't go well, you lose or it doesn't work out. Yeah, but he was out for this period of time, you know. Like I think that's kind of what it is. It's a good way to sort of set yourself up that if things don't pan out and you have a sort of shit return after a break, you could be like, oh well, nah, like ring rust, and I was felt a bit off because I've been away and all that sort of shit. And then, but next time I'll be better because now that I've jumped back in there, I've experienced it again. I'm good. Let's go. But no, I don't see it. I don't see that being like a thing. I think like you should, especially at that point, like what you've had, the amount of fights you've had. If you're at that point now where you're fighting sort of at that level, and in the bigger organizations like that, it shouldn't be there shouldn't be a shock to your system going back out there and fighting. It should be like like clockwork now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess like you mentioned there, Tyson Pedro, he looks in fantastic nick on social media. Hopefully the injury issues are sort of behind him. But now at 30 years old, he's presumably hasn't been able to sort of train a whole lot and sort of work on his skills a whole lot in the last 3.5 years with the injuries that he's had. But how I guess how damaging is that? Sort of in sort of coming into his prime, sort of losing all this time, not only in the cage but on the mats. Like, how much of a dent does that put in Tyson Pedro's sort of potential? I guess.
As much of a dent as he allows it to. Like it's up to him. I think. I think it's going to be really that sort of a mental thing and a kind of. It's going to come down to him as an individual, how much he lets it affect him and how much he lets it take away from his potential to move forward and work towards whatever his outcome of a goal is that he wants for himself in his division and in his career. So, that's one way to look at it. You could be like, oh, I've lost 3 years that I could have been fighting and developing and, kind of getting that out of it. Or you can look at it as I've had 3 years away and now I'm back, I'm healthy, I'm ready to get in there. If anything, you could almost mentally hit that reset button and be like, it starts now for me. This is day one on the job. But it also depends, what were you doing in that time out? Obviously you have injuries and stuff like that, but were you still doing what you could do with the injuries that you had and stuff like that? Were you still involved in the sport in some way? Was it still something that mentally you were kind of still getting your reps in almost in a sense, Were you still watching fights? Are you taking notes? Were you still paying attention? Were you still going to do something and kind of still soak in the knowledge from the people that you have around you in some capacity? Or did you just kind of accept the fact that you were injured and then just take a full step back? Those are all kind of going to be the factors that kind of determine whether or not moving forward you're going to be able to bounce back and meet the standards that you have for yourself, or if you're just going to kind of go through the motions and maybe just be like, oh, well, maybe I don't even want to do this anymore because things haven't really panned out and I lost all this time.
Absolutely, and obviously we're going to get a decent idea of where he's at this weekend because we don't really know what to expect, like I mentioned there. But where do you feel Tyson Pedro pre-injury sort of stands in the division? He's obviously a guy who's had a little bit of trouble getting over the hump. He's got losses to Shogun, to Oven St. Preux, Ali Latifi, who are kind of all kind of those sort of gatekeeper type guys these days. So, where do you think he could potentially stand in the division?
He's definitely got potential to be sort of an outlier and kind of to be in those same sort of position where you see Kai Kara France and Tai Tuivasa being now, where you are a legit contender and you kind of on the cusp of a title fight, or he can definitely, like you said, being 30, he's definitely got time on his side, especially in that division that he fights in. The dude can fight. Like, look at Glover, look at the champ. Like, I don't, not in like a negative way, but Glover's old as shit and he's still out here fighting people. So, and look at Alexei Oleinik, same sort of thing. In those sort of weight divisions, you can get away with kind of fighting a bit later on, and really, I think 30, 35, 36 for people in those sort of divisions, that's kind of where you really start talking about them being in their prime. So I think, yeah, he's got time on his side still. He's got the right people around him, and it looks like he's crossing all the checks off that he needs to in and out of the gym. So yeah. I feel like he can come back now and make a run. This is a good first fight for him back after a big break. And then, like you kind of said, when we see him back in there with someone that's more of the upper echelon side of things, I think that's going to be the real tale to see if he can hang. And I feel like someone like a Paul Craig or an Anthony Smith, a fight like that would really determine whether or not he's going to be able to progress forward in the division, or if he's going to just if it's kind of left him behind almost in a sense a little bit.
For sure. And are we predicting an early TKO for this one, or do you reckon he spends a bit of time?
I reckon he'll submit him in the first round.
Yeah. Yeah.
I reckon he'll land a few shots, take him down, and then I'm gonna say he's gonna submit him. He'll lock up a reverse triangle Kimura and finish him.
There you go, reverse triangle Kimura. I was going to go with a flying triangle, but there you go. It's no, I think I think the submissions are his strength, aren't they? So even if he kind of clips like with something nasty, I think he's probably going to look to lock something up, isn't he? That's probably going to be his big advantage. So
100%. I mean, he looks like
that.
I mean, obviously, you look at him, he looks weak, but I can tell you he's very strong. So.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, it looks pretty meager there, but it should be a good one. It's definitely going to be a real interesting watch to just see where he's at after a layoff. It's always fascinating with someone like that. So we hope for the best for Tyson Pedro. He looked a really good prospect when he came into the UFC, so hopefully he can kind of pick up where he left off there. But speaking of some of your training partners, another one of yours, Arlene Blencowe, has got the big assignment for the second time around. She's fighting for the Bellator featherweight title against Cris Cyborg. Obviously, she lost the first fight against Cyborg back in October 2020 by rear naked choke. She's coming off a win now against Pam Sorensen, so she's got the rematch, and it's possibly one of the toughest assignments in women's MMA. So how do you view Arlene Blencowe's preparation and her chances of pulling off the upset?
Yeah, it's another one where obviously I got to see the first part or a couple of weeks of the camp because she was the freestyle while we had the guys from CKB here, while we had Pedro here. And she's obviously a beast, man. Like, I've been fortunate in the sort of years since I've moved down to freestyle that I've gotten to do a lot of work with her and be in the trenches with her. So obviously I want to see her do well, man. I want to see her go out there and put on a show and win a world title. As far as the rest of her camp, going back, she went back to Jackson's. I mean, I got to call it like I see it, bro. I just think that's a mistake in my capacity, going to Jackson Wink. That place is a shithole now. I mean, it's not the same place that it was.
I actually had the pleasure of interviewing Arlene Blencowe before the Pam Sorensen fight, and she mentioned that she was going to Jackson's. It kind of caught me by surprise a little bit, and I think the idea is that obviously Holly Holm's still there, so I think there's there's some people like her that she can train alongside. But that's sort of the theory that she put to me. But obviously Jackson's doesn't have the the same sort of reputation that it used to.
No, and it's just based on, like, let's be honest, you got to call it like you see it, but just got to go off the numbers. the win percentage of that gym's dropped off significantly over compared to where it was. And like, there's obviously like the behind the scenes kind of stuff that's fighters have brought to light over the last couple of years with how it kind of is and how it runs and operates in that gym. But I just think it's silly that, look, like I said, I want to see her do well, and I hope she gets out there and just chins Cyborg and wins the belt. But to go and do a camp for Cyborg again at the place that you did it for the first fight, and I just don't see them giving her the sort of avenue to victory that she was potentially missing in that first fight. I mean, I don't know. For my money, I would have just jumped on a plane, went over to New Zealand, walked into City Kickboxing, and done my camp over there if I was her, or even just obviously it was a bit different now because obviously the boys had to go to the US because Volk was fighting and there's a lot happening, but or just done the majority of your camp here and then kind of split it between the two places. But I don't know, man. I think that move to do the camp at Jackson's is a silly one, but I want to see her do well, and I hope that she does do well. But from talking to her and then obviously moving around with her in the early part of the camp, man, her mentality for the fight seemed like it was in a good spot, and the stuff that the glimpses of the stuff that I did see that she was working on and developing with Eugene and Joe while she was here, there's definitely a path to success. Obviously, Cyborg is a hard fight, man. Like people kind of wrote her off after she got KO'd by Amanda, but that's a hard fight, man. Outside of what happened with her in her fight with Amanda, man, it's a tough task getting in there and having a fight Cyborg, man. It's a scary fight. She hits hard. She's very big. She's very strong. I can't imagine Bellator is doing the same level of testing that the UFC or anyone else is doing as well. That's neither here nor there, but yeah, I don't know. It's a tough fight, but basically the way I kind of see it is if Arlene uses all her tools, but specifically kind of has a lot of feints going, she's chopping at Cyborg's lead leg and kind of, I guess, drawn her in, because obviously Cyborg likes to come forward and she's constantly come forward and likes to throw those big punches. And you kind of saw with Amanda how like she drew her in with that and then was able to land like the harder, cleaner shots because she was kind of banking on the fact that she was just going to press forward like that. Now, I don't think that Arlene should stand in front of her and, kind of go cop a punch to give a punch type thing and then hope that you're going to maybe, land that shot and put her away like that. But I feel like if she does kind of play into the fact that Cyborg's going to push forward and you're drawing those punches out, you're drawing those big shots out, you're chopping at the leg, you're moving off center a lot, you're kind of just sapping her out that way, I think that's going to be the route to victory. Obviously, Cyborg in round one is a big fucking problem. But as the fight goes on, especially nowadays, that's just gonna dwindle a little bit. I think I don't want to say you have to you almost have to you don't want to walk into a fight with Cyborg and be like, oh, I'm going to knock her out. I know, obviously, we saw that with Amanda. She's like, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to knock her out. And that was her plan. She's kind of like, okay, I'm going to do that. That's my plan. But I think that's a silly way to approach a fight with Cris Cyborg. I feel like you almost got to Wonder Boy that shit. You got to take a page out of Wonder Boy Adesanya's book, kind of point fight that shit, and then look for your opportunity. And if the opportunity pops up to land a big shot, then take that. And it's just going to kind of play out. It's going to play out itself. But I feel like just standing there and getting into a slugfest with her is just never going to be a good option because she's just too big, too strong, just hits too hard. And that's like how she fights. That's her world. If we're talking about removing things off the table where someone's going to have the most success, you got to do that. You wouldn't get into a fight with Damian Maia and pull guard. So why would you stand in front of Cyborg and start throwing bombs?
Yeah, it's a fair point, isn't it? And maybe she has to, take a leaf out of Alexander Volkanovski's book and just kind of, use her footwork and kind of, she's going to have to keep Cyborg guessing, isn't she? Because, like you say, if she stands in that pocket, then unless you're Amanda Nunes, then it's a fast track to a nap on the canvas, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, especially like I said, with her being in Bellator now. Yeah, we'll just she's not exactly coming in like she did in the UFC, so we'll be interesting to see how this fight plays out. But obviously, I want to see Arlene do well. I want to see her win. I want to see her get a world title. But obviously, still have to be, regardless of the fact that she's my teammate and that, I still kind of have to be, I gotta call it like it is, and I think it's just a mistake going to Jackson Wink.
Yeah, certainly, and Cyborg will certainly be well nourished. I would have thought this time, more so than she was in the UFC. I think is what you were saying there. It's definitely going to be. It's always a good fight. Arlene's always a fun fighter to watch. Cyborg's
100%.
always fun to watch. So it's definitely one that's worth watching. Hopefully Arlene can get the job done, or at least I guess have a bit of a better showing than the first time around, because it was a bit of a, I think it was a round two finish in the end in the first one. So, but is there anyone really, I guess, who on the Bellator roster who can trouble Cyborg? Like presumably, if say Cyborg beats Arlene again for the second time. She's already beaten Julia Budd, and the only one that's really on the roster that she hasn't fought is Kat Zingano. To be honest, I don't really see Kat really sort of troubling her too much, unless she can kind of take her down and hold her down. But is there anyone really in the Bellator division, or any free agents out there that you see that can really trouble Cyborg, or are her challengers back in the UFC?
Yeah, I think in Bellator, the two names that kind of stick out that could potentially give us, that are like the most likely people that could beat her, is probably Arlene and Kat. But like outside of that, I think Kayla Harrison, if they signed her, but she couldn't make 145, so that kind of rules her out a little bit, unless they did like some sort of weird catchweight fight. But then I don't know, and even
PFL as well.
Yeah, she re-signed it, and even then, it's kind of like, obviously, it's still not like she's just gonna be able to just walk through Cyborg. It'll be a hard fight for either girl. It'd be a very hard fight. Like, you're not gonna get in there and just run through either one of them's not gonna just run through the other. It'll be like a proper scrap. But I don't know. I think in the UFC, obviously Amanda sticks out. But other than that, like even now, like Juliana Pena, I don't think she matches up well with Cyborg either. I think she gets chinned fairly quickly. Like obviously Amanda in that fight with you could fight with Amanda, she was outstriking Amanda, she was landing the harder shots, but I think the same sort of thing, like she kind of stood in the pocket, and I don't know. There's a few factors. We'll see when they fight for a second time if Amanda's going to, if all the things were legit, if she legit wasn't on or whatever the case may be. But I still think if you stand in front of Cyborg and just want to scrap, you're gonna get chinned and you're gonna get put to sleep.
Absolutely, and hopefully that isn't a fate that befalls Arlene Blencowe this time around. So good luck to her. It'd be nice to see her bring home the belt. It'd be a good reward for effort for a real sort of a pioneer, I guess you would say.
100%.
But also in the bigger division, the bigger promotions, we've got Rob Wilkinson, who's going to be in action on Thursday morning. So it'll be the day after this one goes to air. So if people are listening to this one on a Thursday, then this fight has possibly already happened. So our predictions or whatever will be able to be measured in real time, really. But he's in the light heavyweight division, the PFL. It's the opening round of the PFL season. He's got Brucey Soto, who's had a spectacular flying knee knockout win in the Challenger Series just a month or two ago. So it's a bit of an interesting matchup for him, because I did a bit of a deep dive on this one. I actually, before we go on with this, I will plug my interview. I did interview Rob Wilkinson on Monday, and that one's on the Fight News Australia YouTube channel, so make sure you check that one out. He did allude to the fact that Brucey Soto normally fights in a lower weight class. Now, I was shocked to find that he actually has fought his whole career at welterweight, and he's now fighting Rob Wilkinson at light heavyweight. So he managed to win his fight in the Challenger Series at light heavyweight, and now he's fighting Rob Wilkinson, who I don't know if you saw Rob Wilkinson's last fight against Daniel Almeida on Hex, but he looks like the Great Hulk at light heavyweight. He is a huge unit, and I put this to him in the interview as well. I don't know how on earth he made middleweight, but he is a big man. So we're looking at possibly a pretty big size difference between him and Brucey Soto. But how do you view Rob Wilkinson and his chances in the PFL?
Oh, he's going to bash this fucking guy. And also, he might have one of the best moustaches in the sport right now.
I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because I was marveling at that through the entire interview. It has only gotten more glorious since last time I interviewed him. So fair play to Rob Wilkinson on that moustache. With great moustache comes great responsibility. So he has no choice but to win this fight.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, and he's over there, going out there now, and I'm sure he's looking to put on a show and do it in a devastating way. So. Yeah, as you said, he's gigantic. I don't know how he ever fought a middleweight either. I was kind of like made my brain hurt watching how big he was when he fought Almeida on Hex, and then you're like, okay, how did you make him middleweight? But I think he's go out there and bash this guy. I think it's just the size difference is going to be evident. The experience is going to be evident, and the fact that he's kind of just slotted in nicely into being a big light heavyweight. Yeah, I think he's just going to go over there and put on a show. He trains with some really good fighters. I think Chris Drummond's over there with him as well, who's an absolute monster, and maybe one of the toughest dudes in Australian MMA. Like, guy's an absolute savage. So you got someone like that pushing you on the daily, and then you're getting in there fighting at what it looks like your actual weight class now and stuff like that. I feel like Rob's just going to go out there and bash this guy, and I'm going to be all for it. I'm going to be there watching it. So I'm keen. I'm excited to see how it sort of plays out, and obviously excited to see the start of the season for him kind of kick off. Obviously we all know what's at stake in the PFL when you keep getting out there and winning, and especially in devastating fashion, it kind of leads to some big opportunities for you.
Absolutely. And he tells me I think he used to cut something like 13, 14 kilos to get down to middleweight, which is insane.
Jesus.
Yeah, so it's it's a shock that he even managed to make it without sort of missing weight. But I really think that Rob Wilkinson, like I've been singing his praises for a long time, and I think most people locally have been as well. And we can all see what a quality fighter he is, and I think he's going to be a real dark horse in this PFL bracket. And we're going to see the rest of the light heavyweights on show as well on Thursday. But the reigning champion Antonio Carlos Jr. is obviously a UFC vet, is a guy who's he's right up there in the reckoning there, but I don't really see too much that a fighter like him really has that Rob Wilkinson doesn't also bring to the table. So I think he's a real dark horse, and hopefully we know with the PFL that with an early finish. So the earlier the finish, the more points that you accrue. So, we know that Rob Wilkinson's a finisher as well. So hopefully he can get this guy out of the way, in short order on Thursday, and that sets you up. If you win on points or if you lose your first fight, it's really hard to get back in these PFL tournaments because they have 2 regular season fights and then they're straight into the playoffs. So you got to. You got to do your work in a hurry over there, and hopefully he does do that. But the guy that he's up against, like, he's obviously stepping up a couple of weight classes, but he is experienced. He's 15-3. He's fought in M1, Jungle Fight, LFA, ACB. He's fought all over the world. He's on a 9-fight win streak. So this guy is going to be dangerous. We can't just sort of write him off straight off the bat. But he does obviously have some acrobatic moves as he showed in his first fight. But again, like you say, I think the size difference is going to be evident, and I don't know. I don't really see too much that he brings to the table that's going to trouble Rob in the end. So hopefully a first round TKO is in order for this one.
Yeah, 100%. And then that's probably for the smart money. That's what I'm going to bet on, first round TKO.
Yeah, definitely, and good luck to him. Apparently, he's making better money than he was making in the UFC as well, and there's that little pot of gold at the end of the rainbow as well in the PFL, the $1 million prize if you win the whole thing. So he's landed on his feet, and he seems to be in a good place, Rob Wilkinson. So for more on that, obviously again head to Fight News Australia YouTube channel to hear from the man himself, and see what you think. But also in the big leagues, we have Mini T Williams, who's back in action in one championship. He's obviously coming off an impressive win over the inaugural one strawweight champion in Dejdam Rong, who's obviously an aged version now. I think he's 43 years old now, but it was an emphatic win over a legend with a body punch. And Mini T, I've interviewed him a couple of times. I didn't get around to it this time, but he has mentioned that he's keen to work on his MMA game, and he wants to be active, and so it's proved. It's 2 months later, he's back in the ring. The opponent's name is Namiki Kawahara, who's 7-4-2. I think he might be making his one. Oh no, he has got one fight in one championship, and it was a loss to Lito Adiwang. So that's that's a tough first up matchup he had there, but he's fought mostly in deep back in Japan. He's also the rest of his career was in Pancrase over there. But what do you make of this matchup?
Yeah, I like that. Mini T's getting straight back in there. Like you said, it's not too far off the last fight, which is cool. So yeah, it should be a scrap. Whenever whenever you kind of watch these lighter weight divisions, man, it's always entertaining. They're lightning fast. There's some dynamite in there, and it seems like they got some dynamite in their punches. And it always, especially, and then obviously in the wrestling, grappling side of things, is always like the crazy scrambles because they're just super little, super fast, super explosive. So it's kind of like
they're like little Energizer bunnies, aren't they? They kind of just move
100%.
around each other. The footwork and stuff's really fast. It's like it's on fast forward.
Yeah, so I feel like it's a good matchup for Mini T to go out there and get another sort of emphatic finish like he did the last time out. I mean, obviously it's a really nice liver shot that put old mate down, kind of crumbled him, and I feel like we could see a similar ending in this one. I feel like, and I'll be interested to see the differences and the improvements, albeit they incremental ones that he's made in the time since the last fight. I want to see how that kind of plays out.
Obviously, and he's training at Scrappy MMA, of course, alongside Jack Della, Jack Becker, Rod Costa. So they've got a bit of a room of killers over there. But both guys are unranked at the moment. But these. I guess one championship, the divisions are spread quite thin. It's not really a huge strawweight division over there. They've got Joshua Paccio, who's the champ over there. He's had the title for 3 years now, and he looks the goods. But outside of that, they've got like Brooks and Yosuke Saruta, who's fought Paccio 3 times. But outside of that, you're never far away from being in title contention in those divisions in one championship. So it'd be interesting if Mini T is successful in this one to see sort of how far off he is from a spot in the rankings. They only rank the top 5 in one. So but from speaking to Mini T, it sounds like he's in no rush. So it's just going to be fun to see his progression and hopefully he does well. Like Mini T, he's one of my favorite guys to interview. He's one of the nice guys of in the sport. So hopefully he gets in there and bags another W.
Yeah, and hopefully a devastating one again, because that last one was that was brutal.
Yeah, it was beautiful. But I guess we can move on from there. We can move on to boxing because there's a big one coming up this week. This week. Now this one's probably going to go to air. Like this episode is going to go out the same night that this fight goes to air. So again, our predictions and stuff will be measured in real time. But Issac Hardman is taking on Michael Zerafa. It's an IBF middleweight title eliminator, and it's a huge grudge match. As we've seen it, it's been all over social media. They've had a punch on at the press conference today, and they've had their run-ins over and over. They've been at each other on social media. It's been one of those just classic grudge matches. It's it's a highly anticipated one, and it's also a really interesting stylistic matchup. It's kind of like a bit of a crossroads fight, right? Like Issac Hardman, he's 12-0. He's obviously undefeated. He's beaten some solid sort of I guess domestic level fighters, but this is a big step up in class for him. Like Michael Zerafa, 29-4. He's been there and done that. He's fought Peter Quillen, Kell Brook. He's fought Jeff Horn twice. He's obviously fought a faded version of Anthony Mundine as well. So this is a guy who's been around, and he's looking to get himself back into contention. So how do you view the matchup? And do you reckon how do you reckon Hardman's going to step up?
Yeah, it's almost got the feel of like one of those changing of the guard type matchups. I mean, obviously, and by no means if Zerafa loses is he just done and should call it quits or anything like that. I feel like, but it's almost like it has that kind of feel to it. Obviously, Hardman's on a tear and he's undefeated and he's trying to gain that momentum now and really wants this world title fight. So, and obviously does not like Zerafa. So I feel like, this fight's it's important for both guys. There's a lot at stake, and obviously it's an interesting fight. I feel like both guys. It's going to be interesting to see how Zerafa weathers Hardman's power, and how he kind of copes with that and deals with that when he is getting tagged. And then obviously for Hardman, it's going to be interesting to see how he handles having someone standing across from him that is very experienced, that is a step up in class, and has a few of his own little tricks up his sleeve. Because at the end of the day, Zerafa's a good boxer, so we gotta still be. You got to still look at it like that, and give the credit where the credit's needed. But for my money, I think Hardman's going to be the one that's going to walk away from this one victorious. I'm just keen to watch it. I think it's going to be awesome. The build-up's been amazing. Hardman's just been on a tear on the socials. He's just been ripping into Zerafa a bit. I think Zerafa was kind of involved a bit at the start, but then he kind of took a bit of a step back and was like, I don't need to be doing that. I'm going to let my performance speak for me, and saying all that sort of shit, which is cool. That's what you're saying. But that, all that says to me is your whole thing is being outspoken and, talking and doing that. We've seen the clips of him just giving it to Tim Tszyu on the walkout after one of his fights. And you're kind of you're like, all right, cool. You that's your whole sort of thing. That's your shtick. And now someone's doing it to you, and they're doing it a bit better, or maybe they're pushing it a bit harder than you are, and you took a step back. So to me, that's all little things. That's a tell. That's all things that you got to factor in. If you're gonna willingly give up doing the thing that you like to do and is part of kind of what got you to the dance, how long before in that fight before you give up in the fight, but yeah, obviously, I just want to see a good fight. I prefer not to see a quick knockout in this fight. I want to see these two dudes just bash each other over the period of time. But I got to go with Hardman. Obviously, being he came from the MMA world, so I got to back Issac Hardman. Also, I met the guy when he was fairly young into it and early on into MMA and stuff like that. And I've known him a few years now, so obviously I want to see Issac do well and go out there and bash the flea bag, as he would say.
Yeah, I think Zerafa's. It's interesting that you sort of brought that up. I think Zerafa's taken a bit of an L in the in the lead up to this one, hasn't he? He kind of engaged in the back and forth and stuff on social media early on, and like you say, he's kind of stepped away from it now, and he's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of, as you were saying there, it kind of feels like he was conceding ground there on in the social media and the trash talk and that sort of stuff. But I can imagine how to get pretty tiresome, because Issac Hardman is absolutely relentless. He just has not let him off the hook on social media. And he's I think Hardman's kind of he's kind of carried on like a bit of a turkey in the at the press conferences and obviously on social media and that sort of thing. But it kind of feels like the public's still backing him in despite all of that. So I think he's kind of he's come out on top and in all that. But It's a breath of fresh air for Australian boxing. We had Anthony Mundine and Danny Green years ago that kind of brought Aussie boxing back to the fore briefly there, and this is the kind of thing that Aussie boxing needs. And I think Issac Hardman's a breath of fresh air, just purely because of the character and the sort of the value that he brings outside of the ring. But he can also fight. Obviously he has the MMA background. He's got a little bit of a different. He's taken a bit of a different path into boxing. He hasn't got the amateur pedigree that someone like Michael Zerafa has, but he can fight as well. And he's again. I always say it. He's like Teddy Atlas would describe as an available fighter. He walks forward, he puts in his hands on people, but he's got real power. So it's going to be interesting to see how Zerafa, who's kind of fought at some lower divisions as well, it'd be interesting to see how Zerafa can carry that power, because he did get lit up by Jeff Horn in the past. He did get dropped by Jeff Horn, so yeah, it's going to be an interesting watch to see whether obviously the experience and the movement that Zerafa brings goes up against sort of the size and the power that Hardman has. So it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out too.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, I mean, when it comes to boxing, that's all part of it. I mean, that's where it kind of that's where it's kind of the MMA guys that get a bit of their stick from as well, is the fact that you kind of have to be a bit outspoken and sell yourself and build it up and that. And I think Isaac's doing a great job of doing that. And he's almost, he's taken a bit of a WWE approach with it as well in some avenues, And I'm all for it. I mean, I think, that's what you got to do. You want to go out there, you want to sell the fight as good as you can. You want to build it up as good as you can. And that's the thing. If someone wants to start the approach of, trying to sell a fight or trash talk or do that sort of shit, and then someone like, you want to fuck around and play that game, you got to be able to ride it out. You got to keep that same energy. That's why, I say that all the time. Like, if someone wants to come into if I match with someone and they want to come in and they want to be respectful and they do all this sort of stuff and whatever, if they want to talk trash and do all sort of stuff, cool, whatever. But you got to be there for it. You got to be available for it, and you got to remember that everything that you're doing, you've got to keep that same energy, because if you want to get blow for blow with trash talk and stuff like that, you got to keep it. You got to keep it the whole way through. You got to have that energy to do that. Otherwise, you're going to look like a turkey, like my old mate Tin Man Alan Philpott. Same sort of thing. Started off doing some stuff, and then just fizzled out, and it kind of fizzled out. But yeah, so as far as with Zerafa and Hardman, I think they've done a fucking great job at selling this fight, so I'm excited to watch it. I can't wait.
Have they ever? And I guess it's sort of like I touched on there, the lack of an amateur pedigree for Issac Hardman and coming through MMA. How do you feel that's going to affect him? As he moves up in class, and he's obviously stepping up in class this week against Michael Zerafa, but how hard is it for someone coming from an MMA background? Obviously, you do a lot of striking, a lot of boxing. His style in his MMA days was boxing heavy as well, but it's a whole nother level to box against boxers. So how hard do you feel like it is to sort of, for someone like him, to bridge the gap between these guys who have been boxing from day one?
I think he's already done it. The minute he decided to go into the boxing capacity, it's been just like 100% all in with it. Obviously, he trains at Nitro Box in Brisbane, and he's all in, man. He lives and breathes it. It's all he does every day. He's training, and then he's teaching, he's coaching people. He's just fully invested into the sport of boxing. So yeah, I feel like that. The lack of amateur boxing experience and coming from the MMA capacity of things it's not going to do any detriment to him. I think he's just going to keep progressing like he is progressing now, and I think they're doing it the right way and taking the right fights at the right time and approaching it the right way as you see people doing boxing. Like, they're not, they're kind of, I know he does a lot of stuff with Tim Tszyu, so I feel like they're taking the similar path that sort of like Timmy has, and they're kind of just building up, and each time it's a step up in class, step up in competition. And so far he's just been going out there and doing what he needs to do. So this time's gonna be no different. I feel like, yeah, he's gonna rise to the occasion and go out there and earn this world title shot. And God forbid the dude does lose, what's gonna happen if he loses? He's the type of guy where he's gonna soak that in and just get better from it 100% because he's so obsessed. You can't not improve regardless of the outcome of the fight, being that you're so obsessed and you just constantly want, that's all you focus on, that's all you think about.
Absolutely. He's only 25 years old as well, which is an easy thing to forget because he's sort of been in the public consciousness for a little bit, but there's plenty of time, plenty of potential there with Issac Hardman.
Yeah, and the guy, he's not been shy about the fact that he likes going out there and earning some good coins. So, and from these performances and some of these fights, and I'm pretty sure he's due to get married sometime soon as well. So I'm sure the guy's going to want to earn some big money and get a pretty decent stoppage out there when he goes out against Zerafa. I think he's been saying the whole lead up he wants to bash him for pretty well the whole fight and then finish him in the last 30 seconds. So hopefully that's how it plans out.
Yeah, well, speaking of paydays there, I guess the winner takes on Esquiva Falcao, who's an undefeated Brazilian fighter. He's 29-0. The IBF middleweight title has been vacated by Gennady Golovkin. So Falcao, I did a little bit of a dive on him in preparation for this one. He's 32 years old and he's 29-0, but he hasn't really fought anyone of note. He's one of these guys that sort of sneaks by, he's sort of relatively untested. And this is the way boxing is. People can kind of pad their records out, and as long as they're undefeated, they can work their way up the rankings, pretty effectively, and that's what this guy's done. So it's a vacant title fight for the winner of this one, and both guys are capable of doing it.
Yeah, 100%. And then the benefit is that if Hardman goes out there and does go into like the later rounds with someone like Zerafa, it's only going to benefit him moving forward and taking the next step up and fighting someone, where you are fighting for a world title, you're fighting for all the, everything's at stake. You're fighting for a belt. So you kind of want to, you want to come off of something like that. You want to come off a bit of a war of attrition with someone like Zerafa, and for your own benefit to know like you can do that, but also, it's gonna boost your stock up in the boxing world leading into a title fight.
Absolutely, and there's a good chance, given the opponent is a relative unknown, I think there's a good chance that we could have that fight on Australian soil. I think, to have a world title fight here in Australia, obviously off the back of a big grudge match like this, it's a big opportunity for whoever wins, and it could be a really solid payday. So, for a guy like Zerafa, who's been around for a long time, it'd be a really handy thing to have. He's only 30 years old. It's not like we're putting him out to pasture, but you got to make hay while the sun shines, and it'd be a handy thing for him, sort of at this stage of his career when he's been around for a long time. But yeah, also for Issac Hardman, he's on the way up. So guys like him are probably fighting for minimal money, really, for the most part, and he's trying to set his life up, and like you say, he's getting married sometime soon, and I can confirm that's a very expensive exercise. So he's going to be wanting to get that payday, and he's got a real chance at doing it if he's successful on Wednesday night.
Yeah, and obviously the way the guy's building himself up, he's taking all of the risks. He's putting himself in these sort of positions where it's like he has to win. Like, especially look at this, the build up to this fight, the stuff that's been sort of the said, how it's all sort of gone on social media and at the press conferences and that sort of stuff. Like, Issac puts himself in a position where it's like he has to win, and especially in boxing, like we've spoken about before, if you lose, it kind of dwindles your stock a little bit. So, but I think he thrives off that. I think at his last fight, he said if he didn't knock the guy out, he'd buy everyone in the venue a beer. So, this guy just
on Fight News Australia, no less, to yours truly.
Yep. So the guy seems to want to thrive off that pressure and even add that extra bit of pressure on himself, which is always cool. I like shit like that. So, yeah. But at the same time, I don't see this fight finishing quickly, even if that was the approach that either man had. I don't think that's going to be a thing. I think both guys are handy. Both guys can have shown that they can, cop some damage as well. So I feel like, I feel like this fight will go at least 4 or 5 rounds, minimum. I don't think it's going to be a quick night in the office for either bloke. And I feel like if ever there was a fight that we might see the best version of Zerafa. This might be that fight. Like, I hope that he took the prep seriously. I hope that he's coming in being the best Michael Zerafa that we've ever seen. But if ever there's a fight that you want to come out and put on a show and cement yourself as one of the top Australian sort of talents, that's and then go out there and fight for a world title here in Australian soil, potentially, like you kind of touched on, this is the fight to do it.
Absolutely, and look, if Issac Hardman can't light a fire under him, then I don't know if anyone really will, because he's definitely poked the bear. So it'd be interesting to see Michael Zerafa on Wednesday night and what sort of form he's in. But yeah, I'd be expecting the best version of him. And yeah, like you say, both guys are tough as nails, can take a shot. So yeah, it could really be a war of attrition. And we saw actually in Issac Hardman's last fight, he fought Adam Stowe, who was a guy who was probably a bit overmatched in the end, if we're being honest. I think he might have even been stepping up a weight class or two. But it took him a little while to wear him down as well. Adam Stowe, he landed some shots and some decent shots on Issac Hardman, and Issac eventually kind of wore him down in the fourth or fifth round, and Michael Zerafa is not going to be any easier than that. So yeah, it might definitely be a war of attrition. But they're in a stacked division. If they do go on, one of these guys does go on and wins the belt, then they've got a stacked division there. There's obviously Golovkin and Canelo and Erislandy Lara, Demetrius Andrade, Chris Eubank Jr. It's a stacked division. So now, how do you feel like these guys stack up against those sort of world class talents like those?
Obviously, yeah, with a fight like this, it's obviously a step up for Issac. For Zerafa, it's kind of like he just got to do what he's been doing, I guess, in a sense. But yeah, that's not an easy division to be part of. There's some scary sort of fights that are kind of looming, especially when you start getting into the conversation where you're fighting for a world title and you win that world title. Mm-hmm. Now you're potentially fighting some scary individuals, so it's not any easier moving forward. I mean, it never is, but especially not in that sort of weight class.
Absolutely. And Issac Hardman, is a bit of an unknown quantity, and we'll obviously find out a lot about him on Wednesday night. But Michael Zerafa is a guy who's kind of struggled to get over the hump. Like I mentioned earlier, he's fought Peter Quillen and Kell Brook before, and came up short in those fights. Obviously, he's 1-1, I think, against Jeff Horn. So he's kind of struggled to get over that hump. So be interesting to see how he would sort of fare once he gets to that next level again, if he does get through Issac Hardman. But how do you feel Michael Zerafa stacks up in the against that world class opposition?
I feel like he hasn't found, I don't think, it's almost like he hasn't found the right fit for himself with everything, and to kind of be the best version of himself. So I feel like, and he's still young himself. Like, we're not, like we sort of said before, we can't be writing the guy off and being like, oh, well, it's a wrap for him after this. I feel like we haven't seen the best version of Michael Zerafa up until this point. So I'm hoping that this is the fight, like you said, that kind of brings it out of him, and we can kind of see how good he really is, and how he really does stack up against some of these other guys. But from what he's produced so far, if we're talking about seeing him in there against some of the top sort of up echelon guys, it's it wouldn't go well for him to that point. But if this is obviously a big fight for him and an opportunity, so I hope that this is the fight where we get to see the best Zerafa come out and give Issac, the best and biggest possible test of his career so far.
Absolutely. And what's your official prediction? How's it going to go down?
I'm going to say Isaac's going to put him away late in the fight. I think it's going to be a back and forth sort of war, and they're going to be copping a lot of damage both ways, taking some to land some. I feel like it's going to be, like we said, a war of attrition, but I feel like a late stoppage to Hardman. I'd probably say it'll definitely go at least 4 rounds before we're going to see a stoppage. Yeah, a late stoppage. I don't want to give a specific round. I think it's just going to be a late stoppage.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I reckon around round 8, 9, it'll the damage will start to tell. So yeah, there you go. Issac Hardman for me as well. So and I think he's a breath of fresh air for Australian boxing. So yeah, it'd be nice to see him sort of push through, and it'd be fun to see what he would have to say in the build up to a world title fight as well. He's always in fine form. So yeah. Yeah,
and also, real quick, like, Issac Hardman's not racist. Like, okay,
no.
I know he's playing a bit of, he's playing it up, selling fights and trying to do his thing, but he is genuinely one of the nicest people you can meet. He's actually a super nice dude. And, yeah, he's definitely not racist or anything like that. So I was had to like throw that out there. The dude's actually a super good guy. So, yeah, it's good to see that a bunch of people came up on socials today and were like, kind of put that to bed a little bit, and we're kind of showing some support for the guy as well, because yeah, I think that was just fucking silly.
Yeah, that was a bit of a weird one, wasn't it? It just kind of came out of nowhere. I have had the pleasure of interviewing Issac Hardman and did have a chat to him, off air as well. He's actually a really, really nice guy. He's kind of, I guess, he's not sort of the intense character he comes across at as on camera. Like, he was kind of just a really nice, friendly guy. So I can vouch for him there. But yeah, the whole racism thing, it kind of caught me by surprise. So yeah, I think it was a bit of a long bow in the end. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, well, if the press thing today was on the video we saw was anything to go by, fuck, I can't wait till they're actually allowed to stand in front of each other and punch each other. It's going to be fucking amazing.
Yeah, look, there'll be no one jumping in and breaking it up on Wednesday night. So yeah, it's going to be
also,
fun to see how that one.
Also, real quick, in that video that they showed where like they obviously had a bit of a crack at each other, a couple of people from Zerafa's team, they were like yelling out, "Oh, stop this! This is fucking silly!" Blah 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 blah. Shut the fuck up! It's boxing. It's combat sports. Two guys don't like each other and they get hands on each other. They're allowed to be. They're going to get close enough where something like that's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's happened across the board. Do we not remember fucking, Mike Tyson walking up on Lennox Lewis and then punching one of Lennox Lewis's team people? Like, this shit happens. It's boxing. Happens in boxing, happens in MMA, and MMA is a bit different. You start seeing shit like people running up on people in steak restaurants and punching them in the face, but that's one thing. But yeah, if you're going to be dumb enough to set up a press conference and not have someone whose sole focus is to make sure the dudes don't get too close to each other, that's that shit was just meant to happen then. And if then after the fact you're like, oh, it's silly and that shouldn't happen, and oh, he's an idiot, why is he doing that, why is he acting like that? There's two guys with all testosterone thrown through their body who dislike each other, who just want to get their hands on each other. Of course that's going to happen, and I'm all for it. Fuck yeah, punch each other, shove each other, fucking throw a shoe at someone, throw a table at someone, throw some bottles at someone. I'm all for that. If it's legit, it's legit. So, I just hate when you can tell that it's like all played up, but I don't think this is played up at all. I think these two guys genuinely don't like each other.
Yeah, it felt pretty real, didn't it? And like, I guess it's no shock, really, is it? Like you say, that there's numerous examples through history, particularly in boxing, of guys and girls whacking each other at the press conferences. So it's not like this hasn't been done before. But I guess it only kind of adds to the the spice of the contest, adds to the anticipation. But it does seem a little bit crazy, like when they're just literally just over 24 hours away from just having, they're going to have 12 rounds to punch on. It seems kind of crazy to sort of do it at a press conference like that. But yeah, anyway, like, it's kind of like, I don't know, I think that's just the level that this rivalry's at, and it kind of just kind of adds to the anticipation, really, for me.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I don't know, I mean, so far I haven't really been in a position where I've like thoroughly disliked someone to that point. I mean, so I can't really be like, okay, can't really comment on how I would have approached today, like being in either guy's shoes. But regardless, there is a bit of sort of back and forth or whatever like that, what the fuck did Zerafa think was going to happen when he put his hands on him? Like if you are kind of playing that game and going back and forth with someone and you don't, you dislike them, it's probably not a good idea to put your hands on them and think that the dude's not going to try and punch you in the fucking face. Either way. Even I'm trying to sort of compare it to my own sort of thing, how I'd kind of approach it. Like, even with old mate that I'm fighting in 3 weeks' time or 2 weeks' time, whatever it is, like, as much of a toss spot as the guy is and he's been acting like, I've got respect for the dude, man. He's been around for a hot minute. This is his 50th MMA fight. The guy's, he's super experienced and he is talented. And it's not like it's not to that point where I dislike the guy like that, I mean, I think he's a fucking moron for some of the antics that he's had and the way he kind of approached even getting himself a fight and now he's got a fight, so it's kind of like, but even then it's not to the point where I will be at if we had a press conference or if I was at the weigh-ins with the guy or anything like that where I'm going to try and put my hands on the bloke. It's nothing, it's just silly. Like you said, I'm going to have all the time in the world to do that once I'm locked in the cage with the guy. But, if I did get to a point where I thoroughly dislike someone that I was going to fight, and they did fuck around and present a situation where I had the opportunity to get my hands on them before the fight, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put you through a fucking table. That's just how it is at the end of the day. You can't literally go back and forth with someone for this long and say all the things that you've said and be, keep that and then not keep that energy. Like we kind of said, Zerafa kind of faded off a bit with that. And then you literally are standing super close to the guy. You put your hands on him and then go, oh, what the fuck? He's a Gronk. He tried to hit me or he's why is he doing that? Of course that was going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a whole nother level of rivalry, isn't it? When the emotions spill over to the point where they put hands on each other. But it does happen. That's the sort of sport we're in. But I guess really we're out of time. So episode 12 is one to look forward to. We're going to recap all of the fights. So obviously they're all huge fights coming up this week. We're going to be recapping Tyson Pedro, Arlene Blencowe, Rob Wilkinson, Mini T Williams, and of course Hardman versus Zerafa. I can't wait to find out how all these fights are going to play out, and we're going to break them all down next week. And we're also going to preview. We've got another Australian representative in the heavyweight division of the PFL in Sam K. So we'll have all the details on that as well. So. Of course, check out my interview on Fight News Australia YouTube. Rob Wilkinson is the guest this week. Obviously, his fight's on Thursday morning, so make sure you check that one out. And like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and of course, check out the Fight News Australia website for all the goodies there. Yeah,
we're almost at a dozen episodes. We're doing it. So yeah, keep following along, keep watching it. Keep sending us feedback and get on the train now because it's only going to get bigger and eventually it's going to be too late. I gotta watch it. You never know what might stop you. Here I am.